All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our second episode of Empower Employment. Joining me again is my very good friend, Rajiv Sharma. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us again this evening.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And so for those of you who watched our last episode will know that we have been talking about Rajiv Sharma's experience as a police officer, why he get into policing. We talk a little bit about his side career, so to speak, as Mr. India, so to speak, right? And so we want to continue this conversation. We will be doing this every Wednesday, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 6-ish, between 6 to 6, between 6 o'clock till 6:30. So he has lots to share, and we'll be happy to share that with you. So I know last time when we met, we talked about the Mr. India Canada pageant. But I want to get a little bit more in depth and details. What made you get into that?
Actually, that was interesting. My friend at the time, his mom said, "You know what? I'm going to put your name in," and she surprised me by saying that I've already entered your name. So we were just talking about it, but she had entered my name last minute, and that was back in December of 1996. And next thing I know, I had 3 weeks to sort of prepare ahead of time for that event, and it was quite an interesting event that day. It was like 50 contestants chosen from all over Canada to participate in the contest, and then they were going to choose the top
60 people?
50.
Oh, 50, really? That's a lot of people.
Yeah, and in the end, it went on all night. It was more based on not just it was talent portion, as well as an interview portion, as well as other things, and how you walked and dressed and so forth. So it was more of an encompassing thing. And when I was doing the talent portion, I displayed some of the martial arts skills that I was teaching at the time, and my skills there, as well as other things in some of the films that I had worked in, short clips of that, and the interview portion, and it all went well for me in short notice. And that whole evening was quite a fast-moving pace, but at the end it was I won.
So. For sure. And how did that change your life, or how did that change things for you?
Well, certainly on a personal level, it kind of motivated you or gave you a different perspective. And I did some film work as well, and I also worked in this short film called Broken. It was at the Real World Film Festival in Toronto in 2004. It was aired there, as well as another Diary of an Assassin. It was an action sort of role I got. It was a fight scene. So I ended up helping with the choreography of the fight scene as well. I was with one of the instructors there and the choreographers. So, and we did a few other things like music videos and so forth. So it was fun. You know.
So what was the most exciting part or piece? Being being crowned the Mr. India.
Well, you certainly received a lot of notoriety in our community, and people in general, they got to know you.
For sure.
And there was South Asian news piece that was done as well on, my brother and I at the time back in policing. I was on the emergency response. He was a sergeant at that division, and during that same time, I had won Mr. India. So there was a lot of media attention that was happening, and even locally here, there was an interview done. So it was, doing the film work, the music videos, as well as having people come up, approach you and say, "Hey, you're Mr.
For
This
sure.
one," that was in itself a sense of accomplishment, acknowledgement.
sure,
I was
for sure.
grateful for that.
Yeah. And so I know you have moved on, obviously, and you've most of your career you've worked as a police officer,
That's
and
right.
we'll be talking more about that, some of the challenges as well. We'll be talking about discrimination and so on in our future episode. But when it comes to this Mr. India pageant thing, do you think that's something you want to do again?
No, not right now. No, I never thought about doing that.
Yeah, I see.
So, but I did my piece, and I'm grateful that I had experienced that kind of a thing in my life, right? So, and it brought some good things in my direction, and I moved on, right? So, and now I want to focus on other things that are more of social importance, as well as this challenges in policing. I want to affect some kind of change, and also tell my story about systemic discrimination, and that has to be brought forward. If there's going to be any meaningful change, there has to be meaningful sacrifice, and somebody has to do that. So I'm sort of the person that is leading this, I think, in my community.
And so when you won the competition, the Mr. India competition, that is, how long have you been in policing?
At that time, I had been on 8 years. That would have been in December of 1996. I think I was on 8 years.
Oh, really?
As a police officer, and then also I was part of, earlier on, 4 years of that, 4.5 was as part of the SWAT team, emergency response team.
Right, yep.
So that was also part of the highlighted version in the South Asian Newsweek piece that that was aired on video at that broadcast, right? And it was depicting their careers of both me and my brother at the time.
And so, do you think that being a police officer give you any extra edge to win that competition at all, in your opinion?
I'm not sure. I mean, I had to do the talent portion that was, mostly self-defense and a lot of other things, and the film works was part of it. The confidence maybe you gain by interacting with the public as well in a leadership role, maybe a factor behind the scenes, sort of that helps you sort of be noticed from the rest. So directly, I don't know if policing was the factor, or a factor, but it was certainly maybe behind the scenes, but I think it was a total surprise. I was the last man entering the show, and
oh, really?
Yeah. we took first place.
There's an old saying that who laugh last laugh best, so to speak. And I think you entered that competition. In my opinion, I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing, because it's kind of show diversity in terms of your talent and capabilities as well. Because you could have easily say no and you're not interested and so on, but you showcasing piece of your other talent, I think that was a beautiful thing in my opinion. So I think that's pretty nice, and thank you for sharing that with us. As we were talking last time on our last episode, that most of your career you spent as a police officer, and so as we talk very briefly, that in any job there are challenges and there are good stuff and so on. So if I was to ask you, what's some of the major things that you're proud of being a police officer, especially being a minority?
Well, first of all, I think one should always be proud of what they do and trying to engage in any profession with their best foot forward. It doesn't have to be just policing. We are all capable of many great things, I think, as individuals. We just have to find what we're good at and what we truly enjoy. But as far as my thing goes in policing, I come from a lineage, so to speak. Like I said, my father was an army officer in India. My brother was a police officer here. He's retired after 32 years, I believe. and my uncles were a policeman in India, and my nephew here is a police officer.
That's right, yeah.
So, I mean, being a member of the police service for what they stand for, you know, the courage, integrity, and knowledge, and the prestige, I think those are good things. I think those values they're not, you know, in any way embedded in a financial sort of setting where money is not.
For sure.
So therefore, you have to sort of have that calling in your life to be heading into that direction, and that is what I think being part of that sort of a group of police officers, or being group of that association, it in itself very, very satisfying and prestigious, right? So, you know, I was part of the emergency response team for 4.5 years, which is the SWAT team. And I was one of the first minority officers to be hired as a police officer, and one of the first minority officers probably to be hired as on the elite SWAT unit, because you have to go through rigorous psychological testing as well as physical testing. So, and going to some you know, interesting calls, high stress calls, that was exciting, you know, and so you were definitely on the forefront of you know, policing, and that was being part of that. You never knew what you were heading into every day.
For sure, yeah.
That was exciting.
You know, and I have a tough question for you, because I know eventually, as we move on with different episodes, you're going to really share some of the other side of being a police officer, specifically, you know, based on your own experience. But if you were to, let's say there were a second life when you have to, and you come back in this world again, will you ever do that again, kind of thing? I know it's a very tough question based on this situation, and you will understand more as we get more in depth with our future episode and so on. But just for curiosity, or do you think that you would rather to explore different opportunities, so to speak?
Wow, that is a very tough question. I like to believe if I'm getting a second life, a second chance, then I've made a difference in this life and this chance, right?
Yes, for sure.
So if I've made a difference, then it would be nice to at least see that difference and relive it. If that calling calls me again, which you never know, you know, I would try to engage again and do my best. But if there's those challenges are there and they have to be addressed, and I'm chosen for that, you know, then let's do that. You know, unfortunately, there's other visible minority officers I know have experienced these discriminatory and racist issues, but they're silent on it. They're fearful of repercussions.
And I don't have the stats in front of me, but do you know the percentage of minority that holds like policing you know, position in the region here, kind of thing? Do you have that stats at all?
I believe it's slightly less than 1% of visible minority officers that are in this region.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
and
wow.
therefore, and there's no visible minority officers in the senior leadership team at all. And my brother was qualified; he never made it. So these are the things that are systemic in nature, and it's an elite white boys club, and that has to change. We're in 2017, and a lot of things are still happening. And this window dressing and appeasing the public about putting uniform officers in the forefront, while nothing is happening in the background for equality and true change. To affect change, you have to let that talent rise and give those officers an equal chance to be part of making that change happen, so it affects other visible minority officers coming up. Right?
So how difficult is it to get into policing? You know, I don't expect you to get into the you know, the details of it, but you know, how, like, what are the chances really of somebody getting you know, into a role of such?
I mean, it's always going to be a challenging profession to qualify, because you have to go through you know, physical testing, psychological testing, other aptitude tests, and so forth. But I think given the makeup of our community as it's changing demographics, they are going to be allowing visible minority officers. They are going to be giving them some degree of leeway in terms of maybe being hired. But the thing is, my sort of purpose here is to address that once you are in, it stops there, and that is where the true challenges begin, and that is where I encountered it. And this is going back to the early 90s, and when I addressed it, I was a very young officer. But when I did, I encountered further differential treatment and targeting, and that was the sign of the times that, hey, how dare you?
Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, once you get into the system, you were saying that it's not an easy thing to move up or move forward and getting advancement. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And I think back in 2004, when my matter became very public and a lot of public support and rallies were happening in support of me, there was a shift. I noticed a shift in treating visible minority officers. Although we make a 1% or less than 1%, we were disproportionately being disciplined under the Police Services Act until my matter became public. Then, in order to put a different spin on things, a spin doctrine I would call it, they stayed away from that and singled me out as a possibility as the only officer who had a problem, right? So I think I made a difference there. When it became a public matter and the community rose up and spoke in my support, that's when the other visible minority officers did not feel the wrath that was in differential treatment in itself.
So do you think, in your opinion, do you think that things have changed then compared to it now, in terms of more, ethnic folks getting into policing, to be specific?
I don't think the change is quite there yet by any means. It's still 1%. The demographics, I believe, are higher. And also, there's nobody in the senior leadership team to make that difference. So it is still a challenge. This is still what I believe is purely window dressing to let the public know there's a colored uniform officer there. But at the end of the day, that change has to happen on the inside of the system.
True. Yeah. Good point.
Not on the surface level, and that is superficial.
So, in your opinion, what do you think needs to be done to so that those changes can take place?
Well, first of all, we have to be aware of what has happened, and there has to be accountability of what has happened. And at the same time, I think more officers of minority descent have to come forward and address their issues. So change there's not going to be any change unless there is a meaningful sacrifice. Somebody, aside just from myself, has to also come forward and address these issues and say, no, he's not the only one. And I know there's another visible minority officer with a current human rights complaint. He's also been on 28 years. He's from Jamaica, and good officer. And there's about 5 human rights complaint outstanding right now, currently, with against the police service, Waterloo Regional Police Service, and also the police association, who's supposed to help. They don't do anything. They have not assisted me in any shape or way in terms of legal assistance. They were part of the problem. They were basically doing their bidding and serving me up to that. So these are some of the deep level systemic issues that are embedded in the culture of policing for ethnic officers to deal with. And this is not going to change overnight unless we, as visible minority officers and others, and even I think there's an obligation on even our white officers to stand up, because what is right is right, and what is wrong. We are here for justice, and if we have to go out and enforce laws and help others achieve justice for any injustice done to them, they should also be able to do that in-house. And that is an obligation to our own conscience and to our own ethics and code of ethics. And that is not happening, because everybody, like I said, it is a privileged white boys club, and everybody's concerned about their own personal careers and they're not true to their code, and that is why these problems persist. So
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that. If you just join us, we are talking with my good friend, a police officer here, locally here, Rajiv Sharma, and he was sharing some of his experiences being a police officer. He also shared with us his experience and the process of being crowned Mr. India. So that was a pretty cool thing. One of the things I will encourage people to do is to reach out to us if you feel discriminated in the workforce. And it doesn't have to be necessary policing. It could be anything. So if you feel you feel discriminated, if you feel that there's not opportunity for growth, if you feel that you have everything it takes to advance but you're not moving forward, we would love to hear from you. So touch base with me, and I will be happy to have a conversation with you to see how we can work together to make those changes. And so that's what this Empower Employment is all about. We are going to focus on Rajiv Sharma for the next few episodes, and so that will be our base. But it is our hope that people will take the time and people will call, because I can assure you that people in some shape or form have face discrimination, but sometimes people are afraid to speak and to say things and so on. But I can assure you that if we don't say anything, then things will continue on the way it is right now. And I think, right. We live in a modernized world, we live in a modernized society, and I think it's important for us to speak up like we are right now. So I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to really stop by again so we can have these kinds of conversation. But I can assure you as well too that this is just the beginning.
Yes.
We're going to have him back. We will be taking a break next week on Wednesday. There's a possibility where we'll be doing these kinds of interviews in different countries. I'll be out of the country, but we are going to continue the following Wednesday. Is there any final words you want to say to our viewers? Before we actually go, I really would like to thank you for taking the time to share our video, and please continue to do so, because we really have some good stuff that we want to continue on with here. As I mentioned before, you might not be the information might not be useful to everybody, and we get that, but it might definitely be helpful to other people. And so if you can take the time to share I can assure you it will make a difference. And as I mentioned last time, that if we can make a difference in one person's life, then it means that we have done our job, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And I mentioned last week as well that these kinds of conversation is a little bit different than what we normally do on our radio show. Right, but at the same time, Rajiv and I feel like we need to take things to the next step, take things to the next level, and get to the root cause of problems. That's right. And so that's one of the reasons we started this conversation. And I can assure you, this is just the beginning. And for those of you who know me, know that I'm a result-oriented person, and I never stop until I achieve result. I can tell you that much. And Rajiv is no different. And so we're going to continue this conversation. But before we actually say goodbye, is there anything you would like to say to them, to our viewers? That is.
I'm first of all grateful that and that you're having me on your show and helping me bring awareness to this cause. But at the same time, please share your thoughts with us and let us know how you. I'm looking for community support on this matter, and when you stand together, you will receive justice, you will achieve results, and that benefits the whole community at large. And change has to happen when we all band together to affect change. Yeah. So
yes, I totally agree with you. We are much stronger in numbers. You cannot do it on your own. There's no question about that. I cannot do it on my own. We have to work together to really achieve results. And so I'll be looking forward to have your feedback, your stories. You can reach me at mcnarine@hotmail.com. It is the same email that we use for the radio show. We keep everything together to make it nice and simple. So once again, on behalf of myself and Rajiv Sharma, we would like to wish you a great today, even a better tomorrow, and please join us again in 2 weeks. We are going to continue this conversation, but in the meantime, we're looking forward to hear from you as well. And keep in mind that we do a radio show on Sunday from 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Totally different at our 102.7 CKMS Song FM station. But this is just a one-on-one conversation that we're having because we really want to address lots of the issues, especially with immigrants and minorities and all of those types of things. And I mean, and so I see it all the time, but at the same time, as I mentioned, that we really have to kind of come together and so that those changes can happen.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
No problem. My absolute pleasure.
Okay.
So thank you again, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good one. All right.